Very good morning, and I, on behalf of EduBazar team, welcome you all to this exciting webinar, Foreign PhD Scopes in Geosciences. So this is our third webinar. Already we have organized two such webinars. One was the motivational talk, and last one, which we have organized in the last week, that was Foreign PhD Scopes in Chemistry. And today, we have gathered here to listen directly from Surjandu sir what are the scopes of PhD in abroad in case of geosciences. As you know, so EduBazar actually is an initiative by some IIT students, and we organizes this sort of webinar workshops for different subjects and every month. So what you want to listen from us, what knowledgeable webinars, workshop you want, write in the chat box and in the feedback form also. We will come up with those in future. We also do the coaching and the motivational talk to boost your confidence, to let you know what is the right path to do better in your future. So we have, as of now, launched IIT-JAM Geology Mock Test Series, IIT GAT Geology Mock Test Series, and about 100 plus students have registered in IIT-JAM Geology, and about 200 plus students have registered in GAT Geology Mock Test Series. So if you are thinking to crack your dream exams, join our open Telegram group and grab demo tests absolutely free. So go to the description box below and grab this opportunity now. And not only for this geology subject, we have already launched this type of mock test series in chemistry domain also. So IIT-JAM Chemistry Mock Test Series and GAT Chemistry Mock Test Series we have already launched. And this will be released this July. And this demo test has already been started right now. So before we start our webinar, I would like to introduce our speaker. Our speaker today is Surjandu Bhattacharjee, and he is currently pursuing his PhD in Caltech, USA. He has already done his MSc from IIT Roorkee and BSc from Jadavpur University, Kolkata. So before I give this dias to Surjandu sir, I'd like to tell the students to fill the feedback form given in the description box so that we can provide you the participation certificate after the completion of this webinar. And all the mock test series related links, all the links of the open groups of Telegram and WhatsApp, we have given in the description below also. So go and check out those things. And another thing, what I want to mention right now, that this webinar is basically an interactive session. So if you have queries, questions regarding the foreign PhD in geosciences, yes, you can put all these questions in the chat box below. We will take those questions and directly convey all your questions to Surjandu sir. So now I would like to request Surjandu sir to share his screen. Surjandu sir, you are not audible. Actually, you are in unmute. You have to unmute yourself.
Oh, so
Yes,
sorry for that. Never used Google Meet before, so I'm potential to make glitches like that. So thanks, Shobi, for this nice introduction. This is Surjendu, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So
So sir, below there is present now option, and click there. You can get the option of enter screen share.
Okay, perfect. Your entire screen, a window, a tab. Oh, okay, I get it. It should be visible now, right?
Yeah, right now it's visible.
Perfect. So thanks again for EduBazar and Shobi or everyone for having me tonight. I'm calling this session as a crash course in PhD abroad, and I intend to keep it very informal, not a very formal, full of information, jammed with motivations and scientific contests, things like that. I don't like that, so I will try to keep it very informal and do ask me questions whenever you have any, and feel free to interrupt me, drop questions in the chat box. And I also have provided my email ID in case you guys need to contact me for any sorts of advice or general guidelines. I'll be happy to help you out. So, a little bit about myself. I'm a second year grad student here at Caltech, and I work on geochemistry, mostly geochemistry of stable isotopes. And I came here in 2019. A couple of times before that, I have been here on and off, but for my PhD, I came here in 2019, and that's 2 years from now. So I'm a second year student. And apart from academics, I absolutely mostly love all sorts of memes. So don't be surprised if you see a couple of memes in today's slides as well. And on the right hand side, you can see a wacky picture of me. And of course, I bet what I was thinking at that time. I was thinking about my PhD, right? And I was very worried about if I'm going to miss a deadline again. I just put forward this picture because I thought that I look funny. Um, anyway, so life before PhD. So I'm going to organize this entire talk in a couple of sections, and I will grow systematically, maintaining a time frame from before PhD to after PhD, from where and how you should go to what are the scopes for you out there when you are done with your PhD. So a lot of people ask me, and a lot of people in general are very confused about this, that should they really be landing into a PhD? Well, I have three questions for you that might help you decide if a PhD is really for you. The first one is, are you really excited about science? Do you follow science and discoveries, and do new discoveries get you very excited, get you very energetic? Second question is, do you feel passionate about learning and discovering new things and answering new questions? If you are given a new problem, which basically has not been solved before, would you be excited to solve it and find out new aspects of it? Would you be really passionate about solving it? And then my third question is, would you be so very enthusiastic about it enough to be able to do it for at least 10 years to as max as your entire life? I'm picking out a couple of scenarios here for your reference, and I think those are interesting enough. So why do I not show them to you? This is a picture of Comet 67P. This was imaged by Rosetta, which was a mission from European Space Agency a couple of years back, I think maybe 10 years back or so, I don't remember exactly. But this comet is a small planetary body. You can see the nice valley and ridges in the comets. If things like this excite you, if you wonder about, can I get life here? Is there a possibility to get water here? In what form? How do the chemical reactions work here? Then PhD is something you can think about. If you are excited about what I can learn from minerals and mineral structures deep down from mantle, about the mantle conditions and about the huge reservoirs of different kind of reservoirs of mantle in general, then PhD might be for you. If you wonder about how the early Earth, like in the earliest Earth times in Archean, how the different land masses emerged out of water, like the continents, did they emerge out of water? Which, by the way, I should tell you guys that since I was part of a study like that, I can tell you that one of the earliest continents to emerge out of the ocean in this entire world is actually a part of India, is a part of Shimbungkreton in India. How exciting is this? If things like these excite you, then definitely you are in the right spot. PhD is for you. But there are also other people in general who are taking it as a backup option. Like they wanted to do something, but they're not being able to do it at this time, maybe because of different complications and they have different priorities, but they want to give it a try just to like float in the system for a while. Then I would say think twice, because you might lose motivation and it might be a really bumpy, hard ride for you, might not be a very good option. So think hard before you really do that. So now you know that you want to do a PhD. So you have to know what are the schools looking for, why would they hire you, why would they give you a position in US or Europe in general. So for that, I wanted to talk to you guys about a little bit. about the educational system or the undergrad degree in US. How does that in general work, which is quite a bit different from the Indian system. In Indian system, we have 3 years bachelor's and 2 years master's. In US, you have 4 years undergrad, and students involved in undergrad research very actively, very vividly, and most often, in generally, I would say this is mostly the case. There is an undergrad thesis that you have to work on for maybe last a year and a half, and then submit it. That would be evaluated. You would defend it, and this shows that you have actively participated in research while you were in your undergrad. And often students present those results in conferences, and seldom those are also published in articles, but not, I uh, hardly know any studies that have been published in articles since the students were in their undergrad. But yeah, people are very actively involved in research, which is quite the contrasting scene from India. So universities are looking for people like that. Universities in general looking like similar people who have experience in research, and they have the passion to learn and assimilate, and they have demonstrated that they can do it at some level, and they have some food for thought, something to think about, something to work on, something to that gets them interested. Uh, those are the qualities that schools are mostly looking for. Okay, now you know what schools are looking for. So what do you do now? You just execute your actions. So in my experience, in my view, the most general course of action that I could find, I just listed it in an order. First of all, I'll say that good grades always matter, and they have very good weightage in your PhD decision, whether you would get a PhD or not. So always try to get good grades. This is needless to say. Everyone tries for that. Uh, Secondly, another major factor that I have experienced is IITs. IITs are famous schools globally. Many universities abroad know IITs more than they know any other Indian institutes. In general, there is a rule of thumb. There are exceptions, but this is a rule of thumb. So getting into IIT enhances your chance of getting into the PhD program more efficiently. And like I said earlier, try to get involved in some form of research. It can be summer research, it can be projects in your college, it can be a reading project, it can be learning scientific language, whatever. Just be involved and know how it is done, so that you have some experience and you can work on that. That would get you good places in future. Even you can get better summer internships, summer research experiences based on that. So that is really important. And what good is working if you don't publish, right? So if you have worked for a while and you have some material, try to publish it. There are a lot of fresher-friendly conferences like annual general meeting of Geosociety of India, where I think I published as well. So if you have some results, you can go ahead and publish that. That would be very encouraging. And also, you might attend seminars. There are a lot of seminars going on these days, especially on Zoom. It's easy to attend, and try to drop in there, try to sit in there, listen to them, ask questions if you have. They kind of enhance your interest and broaden your knowledge in general. And one very useful piece of advice is get a relevant background. Um, I would definitely vouch for a strong background in math, because that is almost necessary everywhere, whether you're working in geochemistry, geophysics, um, mathematical or analytical parts of geology, everywhere. So having a good background in math would definitely help. Knowing a scientific language, this has become almost like a benchmark for scientific communities these days. You have to learn some sort of scientific language like Python, MATLAB, and that would definitely give you an edge over people who don't. Um, and of course, depending on what are you aiming for, you should know physics or chemistry. In US, people study all of these subjects in their undergrad, like physics, chemistry, math, and also a couple other subjects. But I think the system in India is different. So if you have option for physics or chemistry, you should think about what do you want to continue with in future. Like if you want to study geophysics, go for physics. If you want to study chemistry, it's way better that you go for chemistry. It would be a lot more beneficial for you, and for your application as well. It would have a better weightage. So okay, now you have executed. Now you know what are the actions that you need to do, and this is the important part. I think everyone has heard this specific phrase, "आप chronology समझ लीजिए." This was a famous meme material, and it was very intriguing to me to not use this in this talk. So I get asked about this a lot of times, so I'm just going to explain the timeline. So BSc third year, most of the Indian universities that ends up end April. So this is the bar here. I think you all can see my cursor. So the bar here marks the end of BSc third year. Then you have 2 months of summer, right? You can indulge in activities, summer activities if you want, even if the semester is going on for a little longer, that's not a problem. Um, and then July to March, you have BSc final year. So this is the BSc final year, your BSc is done, then you have a little more time, like April, May, June. This is a good window for engaging into research. Try to get engaged here, go to universities, talk to people, get some experience. This is a valuable time. Then you get into MSc, and most IITs, MSc starts from July. So July to April, you have another academic year. This is MSc first year. Then you have 3 months. This is the time, this is the golden time, rather, I would say, where most of the internship opportunities, research opportunities come out, like SN Bose. I don't know if it's still operating this time. It's probably closed, but um, METAX, DOD, all those internship opportunities, they open up in this window. So you might want to use that for a very strong PhD application background. Once you know that, once you have worked in this field, passed, your MSc second year starts, and then the PhD deadline, application deadline is end December to January. So I put a bar below December. This is where your application deadline would be. So you have to have your application requirements by this time. What are those requirements? I'm coming to that in my next slide. But yeah, this is the time where you have to submit your application. Then you will hear from the universities around like March, April, February, March sometimes. At that time, your MSc second year will end. So you have again one extended summer. If you want, you can work. If you don't, that's okay too, because you already have your decision for PhD. Um, and once you have heard back from them, there will be a couple of paperworks on the university's end. Like you have to submit some health forms, you have to run for your visa and things like that. And then you would accomplish all those and get everything in order and done by August. And by September, end August, early September, the PhD will start. This is the start of fall term in US, so you will have to join at this time. So this I showed this time frame. This is a continuous time frame without any gaps or breaks. But if you need any gap or break before starting your PhD, you can definitely extend by 1 year and do more research. A lot of people do that just for a better background and better perception. Um, yeah, so this is in summary a general timeline for PhD application. And now the application, what do they require? You need your TOEFL score, which is test of English as foreign language. Doesn't matter wherever you are applying, US, Canada, Europe, everywhere, Australia even, everywhere you need this TOEFL score. This is a very basic English test score, and I think most of the people do well. So that should not be a huge bother. GRE, lot of universities in US, GRE is only accepted majorly in US universities, but a lot of universities these days, especially after COVID, dropped the GRE requirement because they thought it doesn't do a very good judgment on a student's ability during the admission process. So it is dropped from a lot of universities, but do check whether it is required or not. If it is, you'll have to seek for a GRE statement of purpose that describes why you want to do a PhD, what are you expecting from PhD, why is your background relevant, what have you worked on, and what do you want to work, and what is your future plan. these 6 things in general. So write that up nicely, and this has good weightage on your PhD application because this is read by the committee members who are in charge of selection of new PhD students, I would say. So put a good weight on that. 3 letters of recommendation from it can be from your professors, from your advisors that you have worked under for research, people you have done summer internship with, anyone, but you need 3. Fellowships are in general provided in USA, so you don't have to worry about the financial part. But if you are applying in UK or Europe, then you might have to apply for a separate fellowship. So in Europe, there are different projects going on, and most universities, different research groups, pretty frequently seek out candidates. So those positions are funded. If you apply to them, you get one. You don't need to worry about funding anymore. If you are applying for UK, you have to worry about the funding. There are a couple good fellowships that I know. Commonwealth is one, and there I think Gandhi and Nehru fellowships. Those are there, but I don't remember very clearly right now exactly what are those options, but you can always look them up on Google or wherever. In Australia, the funding situation in Australia and Canada, the funding situation is little unclear to me. Most of the people who are applying in Australia get funding because it's very advisor oriented. So advisor is willing to pay for you, pay to take you, you would be in. I think the scenario is also similar in Canada, but I'm not very uh, updated or aware about the situations currently. And after you're done with your application, hopefully you'd be like Frodo that, yeah, it's done. You're very happy about it. I can guarantee you'd be very relieved. Um, then you hear back from them and you get a chance into a PhD program. Then you start your journey of the PhD. I call this life during PhD journey. So the PhD structure in the US is mostly 5 years PhD. Sometimes it extends beyond 5 to 6 or 7, uh, but that's not the case frequently. So first 2 years you have to do some coursework. As a general rule of thumb in most universities, you do the coursework, you get a master's degree out of it. Depends on you. You can also opt for like not getting the degree. You can opt for getting the degree, whatever you decide. But you can get that. And to get the master's degree, you have to do 2 years of coursework, and there are certain requirements for every university that you have to meet to successfully complete those coursework requirements. And then for a lot of universities, you may need to pass a PhD qualifying exam. This can be verbal, this can be written, and it's typically um, conducted after your PhD first year, but it's not something to worry about. I would say at this point, before getting into the program, but yeah, this is a general rule of thumb that it would be there. So you might want to prepare ahead. Life after PhD, this is the part where the scopes come into play, which I think is the focus of the talk. So the major options, as I would say, is go for a postdoc. And those postdocs include postdocs in universities or postdoc in NASA, postdoc in Jet Propulsion Lab, postdoc in other national labs like Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, Oak Ridge National Lab, all those places. Or you can go for a job. So it really depends on your career choice, what you want to do, what you like to do, what the circumstances are compelling you to do. But that's a really flexible tail, I would say, on your hand. And it is almost certain that if you decide to do postdoc, it will lead you to a professorial position somewhere in India or abroad, wherever, again, depending on the situation. But that would most likely be the path if you choose a postdoc. You would end up being a faculty someday, somewhere. And jobs are available, including oil and energy sector. If you work on relevant field, you can, after your PhD, go for a job in those fields, or in mining sectors. Or also, I've seen a lot of people doing this. If you have appropriate coursework in your first 2 years of PhD, let's say you have coursework in couple of courseworks in computer science, machine learning, things like that. If you do that, you can end up in other fields as well. You can just apply for those jobs, appear for interview. If they like you, will get the job. So what happens is companies often come to career fair in campus to interact with students, and that is a really brilliant opportunity for students to land into a job. If you're really interested in that, doing a PhD, you should probably keep that in mind and follow that. Go into a couple of career fairs in your campus and interact with those people. That will enhance your chance of being spotted or get an interview. That will be really helpful if you are really aiming for a job. And a really important comparison, I would say, is between India versus abroad. So the PhD structure in India, although it's for 5 years, is a bit different. You have courseworks, fellowship is provided, everything is like that. But there are certain, I would say, anthropological differences as well as resource differences. I have just highlighted 4 points there. I will just briefly elaborate. First point is resources. The resources available in India are different, and sometimes they are also pretty cranked up, limited in India. Whereas abroad, the funds are maybe sometimes more generous than India. Infrastructure, you would have access to, I think, greater number of labs. You can get things that you really want. A lot of the instruments I know in geoscience sector that might not be accessible from India, or in India, they don't have them. But in US, those are available. So if you're doing a PhD here, you can access those. Collaborative environment is more encouraged here in the US and is more widely done, widely practiced. But in India, it's probably not the case, even till date, which is a little sad, I would say. And innovation, I would say the geology in India in general is it is updating, is going up in pace. But if you talk about scope for innovation, I think this is still not up to date like as globally. So that's one point you need to keep in mind, because after all, this is you who will be doing the PhD. Your satisfaction matters. If you are happy, you can always do better work. If you are not, that's a mental pressure to you, and you would not be very happy doing the work, honestly. So there are situational differences and also different differences on advising style, how your guide advises you, and resources, like I said, like library resources, attending conferences, funds, things like that. I would say in abroad, situation is more open than India. But then again, it's a choice up to you. Whatever you decide uh, is good for you. And lastly, I have a couple of common pitfalls that I have noted. The major pitfall, this is probably 90% of the case why a PhD application is not successful, in my view, is proper letter of recommendation. Ask people, your professors, let them know well ahead that you are going to apply for a PhD and you would be needing a letter of recommendation from them. Let them know at least a couple of months ahead, because these things take time to write. Um, and these are not easy to write, of course. So let them know well ahead before you are applying. Don't go running to them on the last day. And like I said, focus on SOP. So it's a key to your PhD, because it reflects what you want and what your goals are in life and what you have achieved. So this is a really powerful statement. So really focus on that, and get it read if you prefer by a couple of professors, people who are doing PhD abroad. That would be really helpful to get it revised a couple of times before you submit that. And another thing, although this is not like probably a fault or problem on students' end, but the letter of recommendations, I can say informally that it should be written properly. A vague letter of recommendation, like I know this guy, he works good, something like that will not be very good, because people are always looking for specific information, specific things, specific spark that your professors have seen in you. So if you can ask them to be a little specific, um, and you can look up for PhD positions in EAG Job Forum, European Association of Geochemistry, and AGU, American Geosciences Union job portal. There are frequent postings of funded project-based PhD positions on these portals. So if you go there, you will see a lot of groups have advertised that we need a PhD, we need a PhD in this field, that field. Go there, follow that. If you are interested, mail them straight ahead, straight away, talk to them. And as a rule of thumb, I would say, at least in US, the hotcake areas where like getting a PhD is a little more open is geochemistry, environmental studies, cosmochemistry, remote imaging, remote sensing, geophysics. Very classical subjects like structural geology, metamorphic petrology, igneous petrology, they are treated a little different way. So I would say those fields are a little more constricted, in my opinion. So you might try to keep that in mind. That might be helpful. So the Promised Neverland, right? There is a famous anime by this name, The Promised Neverland, uh, where there are bunch of children who want to go out of an orphanage home and have a very good life, but that's just an illusion. And actually, they into like end up to a demon's house or something like that. So the reason I picked this title is your expectations about a PhD will really matter uh, to guide if you will have a good experience or not. Uh, a lot of times people expect that PhD it will be fun. We'll just go abroad, we'll have a good time, spend a couple of days, spend a couple of years, see places. That might not be the case because it's really a hard journey. So you have to cling tight. That's my advice. So again, I mean, there might be expectation reality case. You might expect I learned a lot, solo trip, Netflix, verified Insta, blah blah. But in reality, it's hardly the case. And last one where I want to finish is that when you're going to write a paper, your first publication, this will always almost be very exciting. Um, but when that goes to review, certainly it will be a situation like that. I think everyone has seen this famous meme. So with that, I stop. Thanks to Shobik and EduBazar team for having me here, and thanks for all the people who showed up for this talk. And now I stop, you start, and it's time for any questions.
Thank you very much, Shurjandu sir, for this nice talk and this nice presentation. So I've learned a lot of things. What is the scopes of PhD in geosciences in abroad? So we have got several questions from students in the chat box. So now this is the time for this question answer session, and all the questions we will take one by one, and we'll convey those questions to Surjandu sir. So the first question from Shudipto Kole. So he is asking that if I seek to pursue PhD on a topic that's very different from my master's thesis, is it better to opt for an MS first and then opt for PhD?
This is a very good question. So, if you have a topic in your mind that is different from your master's thesis, um, I would say it depends on how different the topic is. If the topic is again in the same stream and it can be executed using the skill set that you already have acquired from your master's thesis, that should not be a big problem. And if you are intending to do a PhD in US, you don't need to do a MS separately. As a part of the PhD program, when you complete the coursework in the first 2 years, you would definitely get a MS. So in US, I don't think that would be a problem. If you have a different topic, if you get admitted, just take the coursework relevant to the topic you want to do your PhD in. You would learn a lot about that subject and then just execute your PhD. And I think, in fact, a lot of people have done that. So, uh, yeah, that would be not too bad.
Okay, thank you, Shubham sir. I think he has got his answer. And another question from Ritik Shen: which test to take between TOEFL and IELTS for US universities?
Oh yeah, thanks for this question. I forgot to mention about that. For US universities, uh, first of all, I should tell that there are a couple of English language proficiency tests like TOEFL, GRE, sorry, not GRE, TOEFL, IELTS, and Cambridge. I think many US universities, at least all of them, accept TOEFL. If you are intending for Europe, they ask for IELTS, I think, more. So if you think about US, TOEFL should be fine. But if you have applied for IELTS or Cambridge already, check with the university because many universities accept those scores as well. But to be say on safe side, TOEFL, yeah.
Okay, I think the answer he has got. So another question from Shohomde. So he is asking how effective are joint PhD projects between two countries?
Yeah, so the joint PhD programs are kind of emerging very nicely because I think a lot of Indian institutes, especially IITs, have a lot of collaboration programs with different institutes, and they are having these nice joint PhD programs. Those are really good programs, I would say. And I would say that you get a couple of years experience in India, and then you go abroad and get a couple of years of experience. Those are really efficient. Again, depends on your work style and how you like to work. But if you can utilize your time abroad very proficiently, then those programs are really good, and they are blooming up these days. So uh, that's a really good option.
Okay, so another question from Shoham there. So he is asking if I have an industrial internship, will it be helpful in applying PhD in abroad?
Yeah, if you have an industrial internship experience, let's say in any company or things like that, it would be very helpful to demonstrate that you have a diverse background, you have worked in industry, you have some experience in industry apart from academia, so that diversifies your application. But that might not be very relevant to the field you want to work on. If it is very relevant to the problem you want to work on, that's excellent. But if it's not, it might be a little drawback, I would say, but it's not a huge problem because it really diversifies your application. Um, so if you have other experiences, you have a very good chance.
Okay, so another very important question from Anubhav Singh. He is asking, sir, how much scholarship we generally get during our PhD program from US?
Yeah, that's a good one. So in US, I would first say that there is no standard amount uh, that you would get across the US. The rates kind of vary, but the different states in the US, they have their own standards of living. Like there are rules that if you are living in, like, let's say a town called ABC, how much the living expenses should be for a single person. And there are standards, and those standards are well enough for any grad student to live, in my opinion. So your university has to pay you more than that. So in general, I think if you want a broad range, it ranges from $1,500 a month to $3,000 a month. This is kind of the range, but again, depends on the place and the living expenses the state or the town you are living will have to be made by university. So don't worry about that. You will be fine.
Okay. So another very interesting question for Dipendu Sharkar. So he is asking, do you think a publication can be an advantage in getting a PhD position abroad?
Yes, I do definitely think that that's a big advantage. And in this case, it will not matter whether the publication is in the field that you want to work on or not, because it demonstrates that you have worked in a field, you have gathered some knowledge, you have some experience, and you were able to answer a scientific question and publish it. So that skill, that demonstration is really important. So having a publication would certainly help.
So, another important question from Aravind Dhal. He's asking, what is the advantages of taking geophysics as subject for PhD and how to get the PhD in ETH Zurich?
Hmm. So, so there are two parts of this question. I'm coming to them one by one. How to get a PhD in geophysics? Well, that was the question, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, like we know, in geophysics, there are certain different subdisciplines, I would say, like solid earth geophysics, um, seismology, uh, exploration geophysics, to some extent structural geology as well. So it depends again on which field you're interested in. I can say that all of these fields are really blooming these days. There are requirements for PhD candidates in these fields because solid earth geophysics, deep earth geophysics are really important for seeing the mental behavior, uh, plumes, and things like that. And it's a really emerging field. If you talk about exploration geophysics, it's really important to the industry. And if you talk about seismology, it's really important for civil engineers and knowing when the seismology, like when the seismic wave can hit us or not, things like that. Those are really important fields of study for earthquake-prone areas. So it depends, like I said, again, on what you want, but all of these fields are really blooming. And the second question that we asked is how to get a PhD in ETH Zurich. So I might not be able to provide a very precise answer to that, but I can say that PhD programs in ETH Zurich are not very much like US or typical Europe situations, because in Europe and most schools in US, there are annual PhD application deadlines where you apply. But in ETH, it more depends on the vacancy, as far as I know. So you'll have to mail to the professor you are interested in working with and see if he has a vacancy, if he has a project position open. And many a times those ads, those vacancies are posted in ETH Zurich's website, that we need a PhD candidate in this lab, we need an MSc candidate in this lab, things like that. So you can follow that and you can contact them directly asking that, hey, do you have a position with you? I am interested in working in this field. Um, and you have to inquire if they have a position and they are interested in you, they will contact you, there will be interview, and based on the interview results, there will be two rounds of interview, probably one with your prospective advisor, and then the second with the committee, a couple of professors from ETH in the related field. Then, if they like you, they will take you, and it would not be a PhD position, typical PhD position, but it would be a job. It would be like a job. You would be paid for just like a job, not probably not very high compared to the Swiss living standards, but yeah, it would be paid. Your position would be as a job.
Okay. So there is another important question from Rohan Roy. So he is asking, is there any advantage to get the foreign PhD in abroad from IITs rather than other institutes?
Yes, like I mentioned in my talk, that as a rule of thumb, people abroad in different countries know IIT is better because they are really famous schools and whatnot. They have the toughest um, entrance exams, they have really low acceptance rates. So, for these reasons, people abroad know IIT is better than any other um, Indian colleges or universities. That's not always true. There are exceptions, but in general, that is true. So if you have a degree from IIT, uh, you have a better chance. which really should not be the case, but yeah, that's the reality.
And another question from Nikhil Singh. He's asking
Mhm.
if any student has some gaps in his career, so is it really affecting the chance of getting opportunity in abroad and how they can apply?
It really depends on how you have utilized your gap time. Let's say if you had some serious physical illness where you could not work and you had to take a break for medication or hospitalization, medical emergencies, things like that, then you can write that USOP that I had to take a gap because I was ill, I was undergoing medical treatments. That is perfectly fine. If you want to take a gap year to further your knowledge about the field that you want to work on, that is always most of the times encouraged. And I know a lot of people who did that, who took a gap year, worked on a research project, or worked on the field they want to pursue PhD in future, and then they had the experience and they wrote in their SOP that I took a gap year because I wanted to enrich my knowledge about this field and I did this and this and this and this. In the meantime, these works were accomplished when in the gap year. Um, then it's perfectly fine. It should not be a problem.
Okay. Okay, I think he has got his answer. So another question from Dipbendu Sharkar. So he is asking that when anyone is approaching professors for PhD by mailing, which should we keep in mind and how should we mail them? So what is the actual procedure? How should we mail them? What are the keywords and something like that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So first of all, you need to keep in mind that you are mailing a person who is very busy. You might not hear back from them. So don't email out repeatedly. At least have at least, I would say, 10 days of gap before subsequent mail ups. And when you mail, uh, just describe yourself that who you are, where you come from, what have you worked on, what are you interested in, and why are you interested in that. And in general, why, what is your interest in PhD? And if you have any test scores like GRE and TOEFL, you might just write that I scored this in GRE and I scored this in TOEFL. And if you have something in mind, this is really important. If you have something in mind that you want to work on, like a rough idea about a project or something, really can be very half baked. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. But anything that you're thinking of, it is always good to write it down there that I'm thinking of this. What do you think about it? And it's always almost a good idea to attach your CV in the mail so the person who you are sending it out can see your credentials, your details. Yeah, that would be all I would say. I can think. Oh, and oh yeah, one important point is do some reading in before sending out mails to any professors. Like read their one or two most cited papers or read about the area you want to work on so that they know that you have studied and you really know things and you're not just blabbering, you know. So that's really important.
Okay. So another question from Disha Wag. So she is asking after finishing PhD, how can we become professionals in the research field?
Uh, how can we become? Sorry, I didn't get the last part. Could you repeat again?
So she is asking if we do the PhD after MSc, and after that, if we want to pursue PhD as my career, so can it be professional? Can we become professional in this field, in the research field, where we have done the PhD work?
Yeah, definitely. If you, let's say you have a PhD in any field of geophysics, for example, then really depending on your situation, what you want, you can go for a postdoc, and then eventually you can end up as a faculty in a university. And I think you can like that. It would just take you to a professional level. You can set up your own lab, things like that. Um, Yeah, if that's what you asked for in this question.
Yeah, probably she has got his answer. So another question from Ankan Bhattacharya. So he is
Mhm.
asking if anyone goes for an MS program in US and then opt for PhD, do they need to complete a 2 year course or program again in PhD?
So, sorry, say that again.
He is asking if anyone goes for an MS program in US itself and then opt for PhD. So do they need to again complete a 2 year coursework program?
No, if you already have a coursework, if you already have a master's, you don't need to go for coursework again. You can directly go into PhD. If you are in the same university, if you are in a different university, I think many universities have kind of similar requirements. So if you go into a different university, you can tell them that I have already done these courses for my master's from this the other university, and here is my transcript. So if they see that, they might waive off the requirement for courses and you can just go into a PhD.
Okay. So another question from Sinjan Roy. So he's asking if someone has no publication at all at the time of applying for the PhD abroad. So does it significantly reduce the chance of getting selected?
Officially speaking, no, because in most of the application portals or in general, it is written that a publication is not mandatory. So it is not mandatory, but it's just like icing on the cake. If you have one, it increases your chance. But if you don't have one, it would not be like, okay, well, we are not considering this person because he or she doesn't have any publication. It would not be the case.
Okay. So Rohan Rai is asking, sir, in this pandemic situation, we don't have any facility to the access of lab, and also during undergrad, we are not able to get the knowledge from lab-based work. So what should we do for better chances? In
Yeah,
case,
this is a really good question, and this is a severe problem back in India. Uh, Undergrads are, I will say, kind of undertaught, not taken very seriously many a times. So, strictly speaking, in this case, I would only try to refuge to summer internships like IAS, INSA summer internships. You can go into different universities, probably see their labs, um, get a little work done there, or even contact professors across different universities separately and try to see if you can at least have a lab visit. So you know this instrument, this is that, this works like that. Um, that is the most you can do, I would say. Oh, and couple of institutes like Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore, they have an open day where anyone is welcome in the institute and anyone can go into the labs, see the fossil collections and things like that. If you are around near the university, you can just go in the open day, ask the professors questions that if I want to have an experience in your lab for a couple of months just to know how things work, what can I do? These sorts of questions. You can just directly ask them. There are PhD scholars there. They also help you out. So that could be one way. But other than you really have to look at the INSA summer internships or IIT Roorkee has one Spark summer internship. Probably IIT Bombay and Kanpur and Kharagpur have their own as well. So look for them and mail out professors differently. Seeing I need some, I would like to have some lab experience at your lab. How can I do that if that is possible?
so Papia Jana has very interesting question. So she is asking, sir, how is your life in Caltech as it is absolutely 180-degree apart from our India and the life cycles will be absolutely different. The food habits, cultures, all the things will be different. So apps for the beginners who are going to the abroad. So how they manage all those things and how they are accustomed to the life of the abroad.
Yeah, this is a very interesting point. So, I can say that these are some of the things that uh, when you come abroad and settle down for at least 3 4 months, these things kind of go away slightly. But in my experience, I can say that when I came abroad first, uh, I think in 2017 or 18, I don't remember. But yeah, I saw there was a huge, um, certainly a huge cultural difference, time zone difference, and things like that. So to overcome the time zone difference, I just slept for a day. I just rested for a day to reset my biological clock, and that's what most of the people have to do. Um, if you are communicating with your family and friends, yeah, this is really hard because you have to communicate in odd times. Here, midnight, you have to call home. That's the midday in India. So there are a couple of challenges like that. Cultural difference will certainly be an important part, but it will just go away after you have been here for a couple of months. You have made friends. You just go out. Um, See places, go out biking, go out camping, go out hiking. Uh, and yeah, those things will just go away, in my opinion. The social life here for a PhD student is very bright, very vivid. So you can certainly use that to, out channel those cultural difference and all those things.
Okay. So another important question. So from this is from Shaile Mukherjee. So he is asking which would be better, PhD from US or from the European universities in terms of funding, opportunities, etc.
In terms of funding, I would say US because European Union, especially UK, is shrinking up on their funding. In terms of learning style or in terms of how much you can assimilate, I would again say US, but that would be a very personal perspective. You might have a different perspective and it differs from person to person because Europe PhDs are really fast. In US, you need at least 5 6 years to complete your PhD. In Europe, it's 3 years, mostly 3.5. Almost like in maybe in 5% cases, that will be 4 years. So also in Europe, you don't have to take a coursework. So whatever you do on PhD depends on one, what your advisor or research group tells you to do, to whatever you have learned back in your BS and MS, BSc and MSc days, entirely based on that knowledge. But in US, you have more flexibility because you get to study different subjects, different courseworks for 2 years. So you can learn new things and apply those things. So there is more room for innovation, in my opinion. And one thing I should say that the courseworks in US are not really limited to just if you are a geology graduate student, it's just not only limited to geology. You can take courses from any department. Like you can take courses from chemistry, physics, whatever you want. So that gives you more flexibility in terms of funding. Definitely US because US has more funding, better funding scenario than UK or Europe, I would say.
Okay, so that's a very good answer. I think he has got his answer. So another important question from Varnali Das. So she is asking what are the future scopes in cosmochemistry and petrophysics in US?
That's a good one. Cosmochemistry, I can tell from my uh, experience that it's a very, very budding field, very new and exciting researches are being done in cosmochemistry actively, or like discovery of different kinds of pre-solar grains and things like that. So if you are pursuing a PhD in cosmochemistry, that would be really very exciting and very important contribution to the community as well. So I know that in cosmochemistry it's a very dynamic field. Uh, earlier days, that was only based on maybe some isotopic measurements of different meteorites, but nowadays it has moved beyond that. People are measuring very elements which are very hard to detect even in the like most fancy mass specs for the low abundances. People are measuring that simultaneously in cosmochemistry. People are modeling how planets form, how the condensation works, and things like that. How the collision works on the meteorite belt. So it is assimilating different fields, and it's a very dynamic field. And certainly going up, the demand is high. It's a hot cake. So that would be a very good career opportunity or option. I would say rather petrophysics. I personally don't know that much about it that I can tell you, but if you look at it from an industrial perspective, yeah, it is important because petrophysics has a major share of knowledge contributing to the oil extraction process, where the oil can be, how can you get to them, and things like that. I'm not a specialist in that. I don't know much about that, but that's all I can tell you. But yeah, it's a budding field, and there are good schools like Colorado School of Mines and Stanford Center for Reservoir Forecast. Those are great places, and they are actively involved in those researches, specifically applying new techniques in petrophysics. So yeah, there is also a budding field. But if you ask me to compare, I would say cosmochemistry is a more budding field and more expanding field.
Okay, very nicely explained. So now we will wrap up our webinar. So we have taken a lot of questions from students, and I think they have got their answers also, and this will help them to pursue PhD in abroad, not only in US as well as in the countries in Europe. So thank you, Surjandu sir, for joining us and making this webinar successful. And finally, I want to thank all the students, all the enthusiastic students to ask their doubt in the YouTube chat box, and our technical teams also, because they helped us a lot to stream this live on webinar. And I will request all the students to fill the feedback form so that we can send you the certificate, participant certificate within 24 hours. So thank you all. Thank you everyone. Thank you, Surjendra sir, again.
Thanks everyone, and bye. Have a good
Thank
rest
you.
of